Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Rhonda Mattox, host of I'm Not Crazy, but dot dot. And behind those dot dots tend to be those emotional taboo topics that we find a little bit challenging to talk about. Family, today we know that it can be challenging when you are in the midst of thinking about, should I stay? Should I go? Today we're talking about let it go, leaving for good. And I know you're wondering what in the world would make someone want to leave for good. Sometimes we're doing so much damage to our health, to our bodies, to our children, to our bank accounts by trying to make something work. And I know when I said leaving for good, you immediately thought about relationships. And we are talking about relationships, but we understand here that the relationship that we have with ourselves and the relationship that our jobs, our intimate partners, or even our family members can impact our health and even our sanity. And so I am so glad you have tuned in and that you are joining us because I have an all-star cast of characters who are going to be helping us to talk about what the red flags are, what the signs are that it is time for us to let it go, what emotional and financial and physical abuse looks like, or what the just abuse between people, your family, your friends, even your parent child relationship, what that looks like. Now, I know this is not stuff that we typically talk about openly because when we do, people say, well, you only have one mother, or well, you really need that job, or well, that is a really good man. We are going to put a lot of that aside today and just do what we do. Now, I need to tell you, I have an all-star cast, and you know what to do. Drop where you're tuning in from in the chat as I welcome to our virtual lectern, the Miss Jasmine Bishop, LPC extraordinaire at Olive Tree Health, the Miss Charmaine Beasley, LPC as well, and the host of what is it? Mental. You got to tell me the show that you two host.
Stay mentally dope.
Stay mentally dope. Doesn't that sound amazing? And just know, go ahead and we're going to share with you how to follow them because you'll want to after this. And then we also have the amazing LCSW Kimberly Robinson. She is also a fitness extraordinaire and she helps me to keep. Well, I would say she helps me to keep it tight, but I want her to help me keep it tight. How about that? Ladies, I'm so glad that you're here today. We are in for a treat. I know that sounds heavy, and I want to just initiate a perhaps trigger warning to people who are listening in. This may evoke some emotions from you. You know how we are. We like to be numb and have an appearance of strength, but we are giving you permission today to just know that this is a safe place where you can share. Tears are welcome. They're not terrorist. In fact, we think they're therapeutic over here. And so sit with your emotions and you can sit with them with us so that we can create that safe place. Feel free to drop your questions and all of that so that we can have a dialogue, not just between us, but between our audience as well. Are you ready? All right. Are you with me? I'm going to say it like her. Oh, yeah, we having church ain't going nowhere, right? So, family, we are having this conversation because sometimes it is so hard to let go of relationships because of longevity, because of proximity, because of history, those kinds of things. In our communities, we have these sayings that really have an emotional connection with it. You know, ride or die. I'm going to ride with you until I die. I don't know about that. Maybe we need to rethink that. You know, loyalty above everything. And I was sharing with a client yesterday. Many times people really promote that phrase when they are about to do some underhanded stuff to you, and they want you to stay tuned and stay in or whatever. So that I do believe in loyalty, but loyalty to the day I die. Let me see how we navigating this. Those kinds of things. So we have these phrases in our community. I'm with you to the day you die. I love you unconditionally. Yes, I love you unconditionally, but that does not mean that you have access to me unconditionally. So as we're thinking along those lines, tell me, How do we start to know that a relationship is not healthy for us, whether that be with work or with partner, family, or friend? And we'll start with perhaps the easy stuff because it's harder to part ways with our family, maybe, or even our partners. So, how do you know when it's time to part ways with friends? What are some of the signals that show up for you? Oh, I got this talkative group. All right, Jasmine, you smile. Jasmine and Charmaine, you're smiling. So one of you unmute and let me know.
I mean, I always go to the body first. So for me, if you're showing up and your body is telling you this ain't the place, you're dreading going, you get a pit in your stomach, the butterflies are more active than they usually are, right? If you're getting more headaches, you're getting more stomach aches, like all of that physical stuff, I feel like your body will tell you before you put all the pieces together.
Oh, that's good. One of the things that I pay attention to when I leave people, particularly if they're relationships that are important to me, is how do I feel when I leave your presence? How do I feel while I'm in your presence? Am I more anxious? Am I more uptight? Am I doubting myself more? Or do I feel invigorated, inspired, optimistic? I like what Jasmine said. Pay attention to your body. It will tell you it will tell you while you're saying, "Oh, there's probably nothing. I'm probably making a big deal. Oh, they probably didn't mean it that way." And people will tell us who they are. They will show us who they are, and we will rewrite the history and reframe it. That's a great point. Charmaine or Kimberly, do you want to add anything?
I actually was going to say the exact same thing that both of you guys said. Has said that my central nervous system tells me a lot of times first. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can
Yeah.
tell, and even like when you said when I leave a situation, I can like my central nervous system enjoyed this situation,
Mm.
or I cannot wait to get to the car. Like that feeling too. I'm ready for this to hurry up and be over.
Yeah, sometimes it's like your shoulders get kind of tight, your heart is racing, your belly feels a little bit funny. You just feel uncomfortable at times. And I pay attention to that. I am ready to go, as they say. I'm ready to go when that is happening. Kim, do you want to add anything? I think we may have a little bit of delay, and so I'll let her add when
Of
she's
course,
ready
of
to.
course. And I
Okay, go
think
ahead.
another thing, agreeing with everybody paying attention to the physical. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
But I think also paying attention to your intuition, but
Hmm.
also paying attention to how you deal with doing things for the other person. Like for me, I start to resent when they ask me to do things because I don't
Mm,
feel like I'm getting the same energy back from them as I was giving
mm,
to them. And so what I do is what I started doing is noticing that I would start to feel bad and angry when I was asked to do things and knowing that I wasn't feeling like I was being respected about
mm.
in the same relationship. And so I had to tell a friend, I'm going to stop doing things. I just can't. And she said, "You're not going to have friends anymore because I wasn't doing everything she wanted me to do." And then I found out I had a bunch of friends after I started putting my foot down. And so I
Yeah,
think it's just paying attention to how you feel when you actually engage and do things with them as well.
yeah. Oh, that is a wonderful point. Mutually beneficial relationships where both of you are gaining from the relationship. It's not one sided, it's not lopsided. Shalanda Long says, when I just don't enjoy that person's company anymore. And sometimes that's because every time you talk to them, they have a crisis. Now, I understand that that life is lifing and we will have crises sometimes, but every time I talk to you, every time I talk to you, there's something going on. And Keela B, Keelia B said they can't congratulate you. Oh, Keela, it's like you were reading our minds. Listen, when you share your good news with a friend, and for a half a second they look constipated, and then they recover and they smile, but for half a second you saw that constipated look. Do not dismiss that. Now that may mean they're not happy with their lives. That may not mean that they're a hater, but it may mean that they cannot receive what you give. You understand what I'm saying? And so, yes, they can't congratulate you. You know you were looking good that day. Everybody and their mama said you looked good that day. And your family and your friends and whatever just was like, you know, that you kind of gaining weight. And you know you were looking good, right? And so throwing a little shade your way, that's really good. Anything else, so let me just be clear how your body feels, how you are relating to them. Do you enjoy their presence? Is this a mutually beneficial relationship that is not lopsided with you doing everything? And can you celebrate each other's successes? Right? Like I celebrate, right? Even when I'm not doing well, I celebrate. And so I notice, I notice when you can't celebrate. What is that about? So now that we've identified what it can sometimes look like, now sometimes we're going through a season, right? You know, and maybe things are not right on their job and they're stressed and they can't. But how long does this need to last before you start reevaluating things? Because let us be crystal clear, we're not talking about a one and done. Some things happen, sometimes whatever. But when? And I'll start this when you stop feeling like a safe place for me.
Mhm.
Okay. And so when I'm listening to everything you're doing, but when I have crisis and I share, and just so you know, I don't share a lot. I have mental health providers for stuff. So I'm not a dumper. Okay. But when I share and it's like, oh yeah. Oh, and did I tell you? And you can't make space for my events when I make space for yours. For me. What about you all?
I was going to also piggyback off of something that Kimberly said earlier about how when you start to realize that you want to show up differently, and how, like, how even the friend, like, the friend made the comment about, like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to have any friends anymore. That sometimes for us, we change to meet the needs of the person. So we end up having to be in relationships where we're masked, where I'm continuing to have to mask myself and mask the things that I like and mask the things that I enjoy in order to make this friendship work. And then when I start to shift that and I start to, like, figure out, like, how I want to show up authentically, and people can't handle that,
Mm-hmm.
that also is another sign that there may not be anything wrong with you, but that this friendship does not match or align with who you are trying to be authentically. I've had to continue to show up as something else in order for this friendship to work. I've had to continue to meet the box or the standard or whatever in order for whatever relationship to work.
Mm. Oh, that's good. When I can't show up as my authentic self, when I have to mask, oh, that's great. Anything else? Anyone else want to add? All right. So so we've identified what some of the red flags are for friends. What about for, and we're gonna get tricky now. What about for family?
I think it's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say it's pretty similar, right? Like we need people. We need to be in community with people to be healthy. That also means they're able to meet some of our needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody can meet every need for all the things, but part of the community is they can meet some needs. So maybe that's connection, that's authenticity, maybe that's just encouragement. And so if you're in community with somebody, even if it is your blood family, and they're not able to do that, right? They're not able to encourage you. They're not able to show up when you need. And I don't mean every time for everything, but I mean when you do. And they can't do those things. To me, those are signs, right, that maybe they need to be positioned differently in your life.
Oh, I love that. Maybe they need to be repositioned differently in your life. Like that, that is Twitter worthy, that is t-shirt worthy. Because when we start having conversations, especially when we have these conversations with people with healthy relationships with their family, then it's you only have one mother, you only have one father, you only have one sister, those kinds of things. When and so you can sometimes be prompted to stay long, and I'm not, you can be prompted to endure, let me not say stay, to endure things you wouldn't ordinarily endure. You wouldn't, or you wouldn't endure this in your friend circle, you wouldn't endure this on your work circle, but it's ah, you know, and
Well, it's like that's mama. Well,
yeah,
that's just granny. You know, that's just how she is. That's how she's always been. Like, that's what
right,
we say a lot as Black people.
yes, absolutely. And 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 then we sit on it and we do what Kim said. We start to resent the relationship because we don't want to lose the relationship. And let me just check in. We had a couple of our audience members, Avery Thompson. I'm good as done when there is little to no reciprocation. If you can't give me a portion of what I've given you, you will not have access to me any longer. Yes, Avery. And when you have to be perfect or can't make mistakes. And I love what Shalanda Long says, goes across the board for family and friends. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. There is also those that don't respect your boundaries. And so really, I think what we're talking about is just what she said. We are talking about when people are not respecting your boundaries, when there is disrespect involved, and that there's some nuances with that. And then when people also try to sabotage you. Have you ever been around people who try to sabotage you and then save you? Okay.
You stepping on some toes now.
Right. So they cut you off and then and try to make you need them and then try to come to your rescue. And I think sometimes that's what happens with family. They will sabotage us and then come to our rescue and then highlight that they're coming to our rescue with everybody involved. And yes, jump in right there.
Yeah, that's not even family. My first thought was just like was also relationships. That's the spouse or the partner who feels the same way too. I don't want you to leave me, so I'm gonna create more situations or make you believe that there are more
Mhm.
situations where you need me. You can't do
Mhm.
this without me. Look what just happened. Like
Yeah,
you need me here. And then you like, more apt to believe it sometimes.
absolutely. You need me. Nobody else is going to love you like I do. And
Yeah.
then
They're
when
not
you
gonna
say,
show up for you. They're not gonna be there for you. Like, no.
Kim, to Kim's point, you're not going to have any friends. I remember someone, I said, plenty of people love me. That's because they don't know you. Boy, what? You understand what I'm saying? And
But
so,
I think that that is the hard part for us innerly, that sometimes we honestly and truthfully believe that. Let's just say that this is family or this is a partner that's been with us like, 15, 20 plus years. And if this
mhm,
person is saying that if anybody got to know you, they wouldn't really like you, well, dang, you're the person who's been with me the longest. And if you're
mhm,
saying that, there may be a part of me that actually believes it. Like maybe people only like me because they haven't been around me long enough.
mhm. And
And then
so,
it becomes like a self like inward thing of tearing into ourselves.
yeah, because they don't just go in, they crack away at your self esteem slowly but surely. The relationships never start out with them showing who they are. They come in many times and they're amazing, and then slowly but surely kind of try to chip away at your self esteem. And this is a perfect place for us to talk about gaslighting. We're hearing a lot about that. What is it? What is gaslighting? Give us a definition so we're all on the same page.
I mean, I don't really want to say like an actual like textbook definition, but
Oh,
it's
no, no,
pretty
not a
much
textbook,
that
just what we mean. Uh huh.
yes, the invalidation of your feelings in order to minimize what's going on with you, and also to maximize the results that the person who is doing the gaslighting wants.
Mhm. They try to make you think you're crazy.
Yeah.
Trying to make you
That's
think
not
that
that's not really happening, or
mhm,
that only happened because you did this. It's anything to turn it back on you and to minimize the situation. Oh, I'm so sorry that like, you're getting so upset about something that you caused. Like I'm gonna, make it back on, oh goodness, you're always the one who has problems. I mean, if you weren't so sensitive, this wouldn't be a thing. And this like anything to turn it back around and minimize that level of feeling. Like,
mhm,
doesn't everybody talk like that? There you go being sensitive. So just like that whole feeling of like making whatever it is go on with you feel minimized and less
Mhm.
than, and in order to produce the result that is better for that person.
Oh, that's it right there.
Yeah,
Minimize
absolutely.
what's going on with you to to make you feel worse, make you need them, second guess yourself, all of that. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Well, I mean that's spot on, and I will just add. Usually, that's because there's a lack of accountability, right? Whatever's going on, that person doesn't want to take accountability. The fault is you and yours and everybody else around them instead of them. So I
Mm,
think that's an easy way also to see if somebody's gaslighting you or something, that they did something. It's clear to see they did something, but they refuse to take accountability about it, and thus point their
mm.
fingers everywhere else.
Absolutely. They point the fingers, and it's interesting because I remember having a relationship with someone, and I would have to go back and ask another relative, "You were there when that happened?" Because they would completely change the narrative, and I was there, I saw it, and I would go back and I say, is this what do you remember happening? Because I didn't want to plant what happened, but I wanted to make sure they saw what I saw, because the person was trying to like make me think, no, they didn't, I was a good this, I was a good that, do, and you guys didn't appreciate, and I was just like,
Baby, when I tell you
ah.
that some people can do it so well that when you get done, you're really like that you're the one apologizing. Like you know what? You're right. I'm so sorry that I did that. Like, you're right. I should have been more appreciative of you and how you were doing for me. And do you want some dinner? Like now I'm trying to figure out like what
Right.
can I
Exactly.
Exactly.
let me go clean up. Like I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You second guessing your memory and everything. And when you find that happening, this is what I would encourage you all to consider doing, because when you're trying to talk about a topic now, they try to bring up past, and what you can say is, that is not how I recall that. But can we stay on the task at hand? That is not how I remember that. But let's get back to the task at hand.
Yes.
Because what is happening is they are trying to uh, get away from accepting accountability, get away from the issue at hand, and go back. And then, even if you have a fault in your memory and you just misstate one thing, see, I tell you, you're always lying. There is a difference between lying and not recalling. There is a difference between lying and forgetting. And
Hmm.
people will have you in that moment to where you're like, ah, is it? And then you don't get to talk about what it was you intended to talk about. Anybody else want to wait?
Absolutely. And I want to pop in and say it is nothing to feel bad about if you have been on the other side of somebody's gaslighting or manipulation or something, because often these people are really, really good at what they do. They can take a story and spin it different ways and have you leaving the conversation not knowing what happened, even if it happened to you and they weren't even there. So just if there's shame about it, I would invite you to see if you can let that go, because it's not you.
Absolutely.
I
It
would
isn't.
also say another one, kind of like what Jasmine was saying too. If you come to the situation, if you're the person who's come to the situation to tell somebody, "Hey, this hurt my feelings when dot dot dot," or like this happened dot dot dot, and then you leave the situation and you guys never addressed your feelings, and then you realize like, wait, I came about the fact that you hurt my feelings when you did that, and we never even got to that.
No, I apologize to you when you hurt
Yeah.
my
So yes, in the end of the conversation, we realized that we never got to to what I came here for. Then you may have gotten gaslighted at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember distinctly a high school relationship where I was making a comment and saying, "Hey, this isn't right." Person started accusing me of stuff, and then and this was probably my first encounter at this, to where I was like, "But no," and then I'm trying to explain myself, and I left, and I thought, but you're the one," and I. So family, what we're saying is, if you're feeling baffled and confused at the end of something, when you were expressing your concerns about something, you were not affirmed. In fact, you were invalidated, you were humiliated, you were cut off at the knees. That is one of those flashing red flags that you should start to pay attention to. Oh, the audience is paying attention to this. Keila B says, if It's about making you feel less than. Shalonda Long says gaslighting is trying to make you feel crazy or take away from you and making you feel less than. Tamika Williams Fletcher, thanks for tuning in. Tamika says manipulation using psychological methods. And Shalanda says, I just had a potential partner try to gaslight me. Unfortunately, some men are so good at gaslighting and lacking accountability. Now, family, you see where this is going. You see where it's going. You know, it's some people on your timeline who really need to hear this. And I'm not going to say this is finger looking good, but I'm going to say this is kind of like broccoli or spinach. Is you may not like it, but it's what you need. It's good for you. So go ahead and share the broccoli, the spinach. We'll throw some butter in and some cheese on it so it can feel a little bit better. Okay. So family, now that we've talked a little bit about gaslighting and what it looks like and what it feels like, because many times when we are being abused, if it's not physical abuse, we don't recognize it as abuse. What does emotional or psychological or financial abuse, how does that show up? Because we don't even think about psychological abuse or financial abuse as abuse. And feel free to bring in the work perspective if you want to add that at some point while we're talking about this. But what is it? So we are all on the same page as we're moving forward talking about it.
I'm just going to hop in here really quick before we get to that and just say, these behaviors are not specific to any group of people, right? It's not just Black people who struggle with gaslighting. It's not even just Black men who struggle with gaslighting. I just want to be clear about that. It happens in every community in every way, but we're here specifically talking about Black folks, so that may come up. But
Excellent.
I don't want anybody to be alienated or isolated in the conversation. I think everybody.
I love that point. Great point. Financial abuse. I will say sometimes it is when I remember a friend of mine, a former friend of mine, who from the outside in, it looked like she had everything on point. She was married to a very highly respected member of the community. She was a physician, and I was jealous of her because she didn't even have to work. She stayed at home. Be careful who you jealous of. And when I found out that she was being physically abused, she struck me as like me, kind of. I'm trying to think of a diplomatic word, a little bit a lot assertive, voice what you want, uh, and really you just would never imagine that this person was being physically abused because of how they showed up in the community. And I want to take this opportunity to say you can be physically abused and be loud. You can be physically abused and assertive. You can be emotionally abused. And so when I asked her, how did this happen? She said to me something that I understood and I could relate to. She said very slowly, he would say, I don't like your hair like that. He would tell me, oh, I bet you would look good with short hair. Then I would cut my hair and he'd say, oh, I don't like your hair like that. Da, da, da. And, or I would cook something and he'd say, oh, and so it was just little things to where she found herself a chameleon trying to do all this because she was pregnant. Right. And pregnancy is when it happens a lot. But it was just kind of slowly, gradually. And she didn't even realize that she was being chipped away at until, okay. And then when she had a lot to lose because she's pregnant now, and he doesn't feel like she's going to leave, that's when um, I want to take care of you. I want to take care of you. And we here take care of you, but now she doesn't have finances coming in. Now she's a doctor, but she doesn't have finances coming in anymore. And now he is holding the pocketbook, as my mama would say, and not releasing money for even basic needs. And so she's completely relying on him. That's financial abuse when you can't buy your baby's clothes. And I'm not talking about y'all don't have it and you can't buy it. I'm talking about it's there, but you don't have access to it. So those types of things. Feel free to weigh in or talk about what emotional or psychological abuse looks
I
like as
think
well.
that one of the highlights of what you're saying is in those situations we talk about the gaslighting and seeing those in what feels like smaller ways, but it continues to repeatedly happen until it actually like affects the person internally. But also in those financial situations, any situation where you're made to feel less than because of these things. So it's not saying that you can't work, but if you have a partner who makes you do things as far as like, well, I'm gonna need you to be nice to me since I'm the one spending all the money. And what are you gonna do to get this money? Like anything to like make you feel less than in those moments to make you feel like that you need to, I guess, like do more because you're less. So that's that's when it starts to become like the financial abuse, or when the things are said like constantly, I'm taking care of you. Well, like, you're not really doing anything because I'm the one providing for the house.
Mhm.
Like, I'm paying more of the bills because like you don't get paid as much, or like you're not making as much. When those statements start to become abusive, then to me that's when it starts to actually become abuse.
Mhm. Absolutely. And what I heard you say is like transactional. This is transactional, you
Hmm.
know, in some respect. And I think Kim had talked about how people would say things about how you feel about stuff, but when I want to do things motivated by love, not out of guilt or manipulation or fear. When you start to find that you are doing things out of fear, um, you're walking on eggshells. You're tiptoeing around the situation. If you say you're scared to open your mouth because whatever you say is going to be misinterpreted, misread, that that is a problem.
Hmm.
And when I say leave for good, when I talked about let it go and leave for good, we don't understand what is happening to the people who are watching us do that as well, our kids. Because many times, particularly in intimate partner relationships, people say, I'm staying for the kids. I remember a pastor put me over divorce care, and my parents were divorced and I hadn't been divorced, and so I didn't understand why he was putting me over divorce care. But the very first meeting I had with those kids, two of them in there were talking about their parents divorcing, and one of the questions that I asked was, do you want them to get back together? And he said, no, we were glad when they left. And I had never in my entire life heard they were, because I always was like, oh, I want my parents to get back together. So I couldn't fathom that they were like glad that they left, and said, "Oh, it was so much commotion and fighting, and the house was finally peaceful." So there are some kids, even last week I had someone say that her kids were telling her, "You need to go, mama." So you may think you're doing it for the kids, but sometimes the best thing you can do for those kids is not be there. All right.
And I don't know, I struggle with that one a lot because I feel like that not only was I a product of that, but also working with so many women, and like even like doing group stuff, like women who have been abused, and all of them are like, "Oh, we're staying for the kids," and it's like, "Are you though? Are you honestly staying for the kids, or are you using the kids as an excuse? Because sometimes that's what it is. The kid is an
Mm-hmm.
excuse for the fact that I'm scared to leave for other reasons. Now, don't get me wrong. If the person is taking care of you financially, yes, that's scary because like you don't want anything to happen to your child.
Right.
But in a lot of other situations, we do have the idea of I'm going to use the child as the excuse as to why I'm not leaving. When you know that even when that child turns 18, you still are going to like find another excuse as to why you're not leaving this house because it isn't a child. It's you and your own fear of leaving this situation.
Convenience. It's interesting because I grew up in what I believe to be a family of strong women, loud, assertive, would curse people out. And so in my little 4-year old brain, that's what Black woman strength was. They didn't take anything, and they would tell you. And so I remember my very first time I witnessed domestic violence. And of course, I didn't know it was. A close relative came in through the door, and this was a loud relative who was always talking noise and fun or whatever. She was not what I saw as weak or a victim or anything like that. And so she came to the door, and she was bloodied and beaten, and the other family members surrounded her in the bathroom. And in my mind, I'm thinking, we're about to get our guns and go a blazing after this fella, after I heard who it was or whatever. And so she's in the bathtub and she's sobbing. And the question that they asked was, well, what did you do? And I was only 4 years old. But I could not fathom anything that she could have done to cause someone who loved her to do that, right? And so, and she starts to be bombarded with these questions about what she did. There was no protection. And so that is my first recollection. And then they were talking to her about what she needed to do differently and sending her back to this fella. And you know I wasn't very smart, but I think I was smarter than everybody in that room with my 4-year-old self, because I was, I can't tell you what I was thinking, but now I imagine what, and so I was disappointed that we weren't about to get our guns and go and go take care of this fella. So um, our kids are seeing this, and then we're also saying things like love tap when a little boy hits you. I mean, I remember being hit, and then somebody saying, oh, he just love you. And so we're conditioning our kids sometimes to accept love taps, or somebody popping you or whatever. It's, oh, they like you. And then we grow into seeing that. So I said that long story to say, let me tell you what, you ain't staying for their good. That's not good, because then they will grow up and they will think that's what love looks like. All right, let me check in with the chat, because I felt my heart racing and my blood pressure maybe going up. Okay. um, let's see here. Problem is, people don't want to speak truth anymore. Absolutely, no one needs to feel alienated. And I'm speaking from my personal point of view. Yes, couples who husbands abuse them in terms of financial abuse. He won't allow her to spend a dime without his permission and approval. He will not give her access to any bank accounts, leaving them completely reliable on him. And let me just say, sometimes when that happens, it happens, you know, it happens because we lazy, okay? Because we lazy, and things start out good, and they're good with this, they're good with that. And so we don't know anything. Oh, yeah, you don't even know how much anything costs. And I can say I've been guilty of it. Okay. But you don't know. And so then when the relationship shifts, while it was in good times, you weren't paying attention to stuff. And now it's shifted and you don't know a single thing. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, have discussions about your finances. Know what's coming down the pipeline. When my father died, my stepmother had never handled anything. She didn't know stuff was coming out the bank automatically. She didn't know anything about direct deposit. She didn't know a single thing. He had put it all in a book for her. She didn't even know where the book was. I had to tell her where the book was, because my dad knew she wasn't gonna know. Don't nobody share this with her, okay? But anyway, listen, I tell my guests, don't share your personal stories and get kicked out of your houses. And here I go, okay? Thelma Hardy said, we must all cultivate the ability to recognize red flags, hopefully before we are invested on something or someone. And yes, Patricia Davis, manipulation is definitely abuse. So, family, we have covered a whole lot of things, but I want to bring this back to how do we learn from the lessons that we've witnessed, so that we don't continue to do that, and so that we can break free from it if we're still in it. But let me start with breaking free from it if we're still in it, because there's some people on here that's trying to figure this thing out. And folks say, why don't people leave? And we can talk about why folks don't leave. But before we talk about it, just in case we run out of time, what about when all this stuff is going on and you need to leave? You know you need to part ways, but you're struggling because of longevity or history or whatever. How do you build up the mental fortitude to do just that? You know?
I mean, I would say you don't do it alone. I mean, I think some people do, but it's really really difficult. It helps when you have support and help. And I say that knowing that it's also really hard to have support and help because this person has spent time isolating you, cutting you off from people. But sometimes you need extra support. Honestly,
Mhm.
you know, we heal in connection with other people, and sometimes you just cannot depend on your own strength. You need someone to reach in, to grab your hand, to help you pull yourself out of the situation.
Excellent points. And as you said, so many times we've isolated. People have cut you off from family or friends. They've talked badly about them, and so, or they've embarrassed you in front of them, so that you feel too embarrassed to have those friends. Um, if you are doing that, there's what resources are there?
Yeah. And my question is, usually, do you have anybody you can stay with? Do you have anybody who can go with you once you leave to pick up your things, right? So that we have extra eyes and we have extra people there. Is there a way that you can do it when the person is not there to prevent chaos and conflict?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are resources, but you also have to ask for help or be willing to receive it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And sometimes we won't. We are concerned about leaving because of what people are going to think. We're concerned about leaving because we don't have the resources. And I'm always reminded of Tina Turner leaving and saying, "Just give me my name, okay?" Like that. Just give me my name. Sometimes the only way that you are going to it may be frightening to leave, but if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And it doesn't matter after the abuse is, I'm not going to do it anymore. Look at what you made me do. They're gifts. Listen, there is I think there is some kind of master plan book. There's a game plan for how to abuse and what to say and how to keep them around. And you just have to break free. Certainly, if you can start with therapy. I remember when I was getting married, I remember my real estate agent said something to me, and I thought this was really good. And I wasn't sure, um, I don't know what my husband and I were sharing with her, or if she just shared this with everybody. But she said to me, and I quote, "When you go to the grocery store, you can just take out 25 or 50 extra dollars and put it away for if you ever need to get away." And I was like, is my husband crazy? What is it she's saying? But I later realized that she shared that with women because of what her story was. Okay. And so, it was like, just share it. Now, I grew up here and save for a rainy day. I Because of who I am, I did not want to do that. But when you know that you are leaving, be sure. What I said didn't make sense, right? I do believe in saving for a rainy day, but I meant I didn't believe in having those for me, for Rhonda, based on what I got going on. I didn't want any secret accounts for Rhonda. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying for Rhonda, okay? But preparing the way. Charmaine, Kimberly, add please.
I think that highlighting what you said earlier, even like referencing the Tina Turner um, thing and like the whole like scene in the movie, which I'm like not quite sure like if it happened like that, but
Mm-hmm,
per se,
mm-hmm,
but to recognize that the biggest takeaway of that is that she recognized that she was her biggest asset. I think that
mm-hmm,
a lot of times when we get nervous or we get scared in these situations, we get so focused on other things. Like, okay, like, there's the house, there's the car, like, there's like all these other things, there's the business. But when you can get on that healing journey and recognize that the biggest asset is you, anything else can be replaced.
mm-hmm.
But if I believe in me and I have enough self love, I don't care if that man takes everything because he no longer because like at the end of the day he no longer has me and I'm the biggest asset and everything else can be replaced, but I can't.
And I'm going to tell you, and some of the stuff that you want to take, you need to leave it because that energy that comes with it, you
That
don't, you
I don't
don't
even
want
yeah, I don't even want this bed in this house. Like I don't even want that. Like I don't
that.
need that. Like I just like me. And I mean I know that like everybody's different when it comes to faith and everything else, but I do have enough faith in God and trust in me that I don't care if everything else is gone. Like it's me.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna be okay.
For real, for real, for real.
Whew, that's a
And
word.
understand that we're living in a generation now where you can get paid to edit videos. You can get paid to be social media influencers. You can get paid to make podcasts. You
We get
the
paid to
opportunity
transcribe
now
some words that are somewhere
to
else. Yeah, that's true.
right the opportunity to create income. We are not our parents anymore, and so you can dip out, right? Um, and let me be crystal clear. I'm not encouraging any. I'm not encouraging divorce. I'm not encouraging anything. But what I am encouraging is you having your life and you leaving with your sanity. And sometimes we don't have anybody to talk to because we've created such a facade that we don't have anybody to talk to. We can't have this conversation, or we feel like we can't have this conversation. Jasmine, I think I saw you.
I did, but I think Kimberly unmuted, so I'm going to let her go if she's first, and
Okay.
I'll round us off.
Because I've been quiet because I've been just eating all this up. It's been good. It's been real good. But I think also, now I'm a little older. I'm a little older than y'all. And so, maybe unlike y'all, I grew up with a family full of women who want to do this.
Full of
And
what?
I think that it's important to start sharing those conversations. Being raised in a family where several women have been abused emotionally,
Mhm,
physically,
mhm,
and financially,
mhm,
and
mhm,
that we underscore how much financial dependency we have in these relationships. And I
mhm.
understand being an influencer. How many 70-year-old women going to be influencers?
Oh, I see what
A
you're
lot of them
saying.
don't know how to do that. And so I
Mhm,
think it's important. So I think it's I think the main thing is to learn to you are your best asset. I agree with Charmaine. You are your best
mhm,
asset. But shucks, if you've been torn down for so many years, how do you build yourself back up to believe that you are the best asset?
mhm,
That you can
mhm.
get out, that you can have a life without this man. And we know, and vice versa, man without a woman. And it's the most dangerous time to leave
Mhm,
when you
mhm,
want to leave. So
mhm.
support, of course, resources. If you don't have friends, try to be friends with somebody. I think that, really learning to understand that you are not the wrong person. You are not to blame
That's good.
for any of
And
this. I think a lot of people stay because they mad at themselves
yeah,
that they stayed so long with these folks when they knew better. No women, most people know, but they know better.
listen, I'm going to jump in
They
right
know
here
better.
and just say this piece right. One thing
But
that
gosh
I don't
darn
want
it,
to
I
forget. So
stayed
one of the
here.
things that happens sometimes too is
And so
that
really learning
when
to
people
build
are
your
when people are talking about um, when when they are talking about this with their faith community, sometimes they can be encouraged by faith community to stay regardless. And so there are people who have gone back and been murdered because they did have the good sense to leave, but then they circled back because of, and I won't just limit to the faith community. I'll say faith community or family or friends or whatever, because we have people who mean well but are unwise at times. And so please, please, please understand that while I respect whatever your religious tradition is, if you are being encouraged to stay in harm's way, meaning to be physically violated, raped, beat, those types of things, or to be present and your kids are being sexually abused, I I consider it 100% um, an opportunity for you to leave, because if you are from a Christian background, he came. We might have life in that more abundantly. Not that we might be victimized by our spouses. All right. Um, and if I'm the apple of his eye, I need to be the apple of your eye as well if I'm going to stay. I'm just now, Jasmine, great points, Kim. Thank you for sharing that. And I will keep that in mind as I move forward. Jasmine, what were you going to add?
Well, I don't know if this is where Kim was going, but I think we're gonna travel in that direction. But I think, like we talked about, sometimes our cultural lens holds us back, just us as Black people. I don't know if you guys or on the internet and always see the memes. Every so often it pops up of like they don't make marriages like they used to. Back in the day, Granny and Pop Pop, they was together for decades and decades. But I think that the way that we tell that story is harmful because we're leaving out the parts where Granny ain't have no money and she was drug up and down the street and had been through all that she had been through with the cheating women and the extra families and the abuse and all of the things, trying to glamorize what matters is the fact that there's a marriage that worked out versus we had two happy, healthy, whole people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for some reason, there's some glamour in that we tend to gravitate because that's the only part of the story that we tell and not the full story because the full story is people were suffering. People
Yes.
passed it down because
100%.
the people around them said this is your only option. This is what God wants for you. He joined y'all together. Therefore, y'all shall not ever be apart. But like
Mm-hmm.
you said, I'm here to tell you, God wants good for you. He
Mm-hmm.
wants good for you. God himself would not abuse you. Why would he put you in the hands of somebody who would?
Absolutely.
And that also leads to a follow-up question. Sometimes I'll be asking people, did the Lord bring y'all together? I'm just asking.
Oh,
Did
wait.
he say
That right there.
did he
That.
ask him after the fact? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or like, are we here by circumstance? Are we here by like obligation? Are we here
Mm-hmm.
because there was like four of us in the city? Like what happened?
Yes.
Like,
Or did
'cause-
he tell you what you needed to do and you did not listen to your gut
yes,
on that wedding
That
day?
part.
Did you say, I knew from the very beginning, but I went anyway?
yes. But I
That
think that
part.
Kimberly brought up a good point too, is that like sometimes
Mhm.
when we get into these situations and then it gets to this point, or like what like Kimberly was saying, but also what Jasmine was saying, when you start to like slowly look at, do I feel emotionally safe in my relationship? Do I feel emotionally whole? Do I feel like I can trust and depend on this person physically and emotionally? And sometimes those things can be worked through. Sometimes those
Mhm.
are things that that you discuss with your partner and we're fine and we can get through it. But if it's not, then like having to like figure out what that looks like for you. Because sometimes also too of like what makes me happy outside of them. What do I
Mhm.
like what life do I have outside of them? Do I have any hobbies? I don't even know what I watch on TV because everything about me is about this person. Like I have literally become the girl of Coming to America. Whatever you like. Like I don't have anything else other than making you happy. And at some point, the other person gets lost in this situation.
Yes. And it's so easy to do, particularly when you have children, to just start. I want to just recognize a couple of comments. Erin says sometimes you have to leave everything behind and trust God to restore and help you rebuild. To your point, yes. Good tip to get Cash App at the store. Now, audience, we are family. This has been, I won't say this has been good, but this has been necessary and essential. And time is upon us. Those of you who are listening, please share for later consumption by some of your friends that you don't know need this. Okay, that you don't even know, but this can be life saving for them. So go ahead and share. Um, as we are about to wrap up, because we only have 6 minutes left, I want to leave time for you all to address to either leave them with some points on resources that are available to get them to safety or through a situation, or points that you wanted to cover that I've not asked you about yet, but you need to get it in before you get off this this call. So um, share. I
So I
read.
don't know. This
Go
is
ahead.
also my time for me to go ahead and throw out my shameless plug too. So like like Rhonda said earlier, we do have our podcast and YouTube show called Stay Mentally Dope, and me and Jasmine actually do discuss similar topics. And one of the topics that I know that we have discussed a couple times are like self-love and how that shows up in relationships, so which I think leads to some of these things that we have in this discussion, that sometimes we need to discuss how we like what the relationship is with ourselves, so that even when we do leave a situation, we don't end up right back in the same situation all over again, because that will happen if you do not heal from the relationship.
Absolutely. And when we're done, please drop that link for those into the chat, because we keep recreating the same situation over and over. And even though it's not comfortable, it feels comfortable and it feels normal to us. And so we go about recreating them. Jasmine or Kim? Jasmine or Kim?
Well, I was gonna let Kim go, but I'll jump in here real quick. I was gonna say yes, definitely. We're actually filming for Waiting to Exhale this week, which is kind of very appropriate because there's a lot to talk
This was
about
a
there.
divine appointment for the record, okay?
That's right. Look, everything was on time. So start there. If you are in Arkansas or Arkansas adjacent, Women and Children First is a stellar organization. They have a hotline you can call and they will walk you through anything, finding somewhere to go, connecting with lawyers, even if you're not in the state. They will hook you up to some local resources. And they're very good at what they do.
Women and
Extremely
children
good.
first.
Women and Children First. And the book on boundaries by, I know I'm going to pronounce her name wrong. Was it
Mhm.
Nidra Tawab? I think is how you say her name. I think her book is really good. It's about boundaries, but she walks you through what happens or what you can expect when you draw boundaries with people and what their reaction would be, which might be throwing a tantrum, manipulating, gaslighting, so that you can have a good framework for what you expect when you start the breaking away process.
Mhm.
So I would start there. And of course, find a therapist. You should not have to do this kind of thing alone. Look, set boundaries, find peace. This book right yonder, right here.
Yes,
If
good.
nothing else, start there.
I love it. I love it. So, set boundaries, couple of books, Women and Children First,
Yes.
Centers for Healing Hearts and Spirits as well.
Yes.
Kimberly, I think we have a little bit of delay. Kim?
Listen, the main thing I'm tired of these delays, but I'll talk a little slower. So I think the takeaway for me has been um, that listen, you are important and that you are special and you deserve to be treated well. It doesn't matter who it is. And I think Google is your best friend. I tell my kids that Google is your best friend. So all you got to type in is gaslight. You can type in toxic relationships. You can type in worksheets, whatever you need to do to figure out do you fit into these categories. And therapy is your friend. I've been
Yeah,
to it. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with it. I'm a
yeah,
therapist and I've been to therapy. And
yeah,
so I encourage therapy. I encourage journaling.
yeah.
I encourage you building some relationships with some folks that will cheer you on and making sure you are taking care of you. I say, I got me, myself, and I. That's all I got in the end. That's how I found out. Beyonce.
All right
So make sure that you are taking care of you and you do not deserve to be mistreated.
now. Great points. Great points from
We
all
need
of
nothing else. We heard from
Amen.
them.
Prophetess
All
Beyonce.
right.
We need nothing else.
Uh, well, look, I'm throwing, and you need the Lord. Okay, you need the
And we
Lord.
do. And we do.
Family, thank you so much for tuning in. I
Lord.
second what they've said. I will say, if you are planning to leave, don't do this willy nilly. Come up with a plan, get your documents, and have, if there is violence involved, pack a bag. 2 or 3 days as the winter comes up, you can just have this bag packed because you need to. What if something happens and there's a tornado? You need to get out, but have a backpack so you can get out. Make sure that you drop in some Google Forms, important documents, or have a save for birth certificates and that kind of stuff, and even meds. And just Google exit plan or departure plan when there is domestic violence so that you can get out. This show was not designed to be a domestic violence show exactly, but we moved into that and stayed there for a while. I want to you just to join me in giving some loves and likes to these amazing ladies who have shared and gifted us with their time. If you went to any one of them, it's probably 150 to 250 an hour, and you got all three of them for for nothing. Okay, so yes, we're glad you're here. Now, during parts Please join me next week, same time, same place, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, share, let these ladies know that you enjoyed them, and I appreciate you. Step outside your comfort zone and make an impact. Bye bye. And the church said, Amen. Bye
Amen.
bye.
Amen.